Welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, where we take the mystery out of the tarot and help you bring this ancient practice into everyday life. In this podcast, we'll talk about life, tarot, and everything in between. So grab your tarot deck, get comfortable, and start your journey to tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter, and welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. As you can probably tell, if you're watching us today on YouTube, those of you who are listening, we're dressed up in costume. So today is the first of two episodes where we're going to focus on the theme of Halloween. And today, Bonnie and I are going to share with you our favorite Halloween themed or Halloween friendly decks. If you're not watching us, if you're listening, though, other thing I wanted to mention, I want to say thank you because we have done a rebrand. We are now the Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, and you had to come and find us. So if you've done that, thank you. We appreciate your loyalty. We appreciate you sticking with us, and we hope you enjoy these two episodes. The first, we're going to share our decks around what, for me, actually is one of my favorite times of the year. I love Halloween. I loved Halloween as an educator because I would watch the students inside the school have all kinds of fun, choosing to dress up in whatever it was they wanted to. It was almost like the day where, fantasy became reality and you could be and, pretend to be whoever it was you wanted. So part of the reason why I love that. I like it for spiritual reasons as well. For me, it's a time that, marks almost the end of one year and the beginning of another. In my own tarot and spiritual practice, it really does mark that time where the veil is thinned between, our world and another world. So I really do enjoy that part of Halloween as well. And I like the primarily North American tradition of trick-or-treating, where, young people find their way to the door and you hand them a bunch of unhealthy food that goes into a bag so that their teeth can rot, for the first week of November. All of those things are fantastic. It really is a joyful, celebration. And I do quite enjoy that. So we're going to share some decks that play nicely in and around Halloween time. Bonnie, what about you? I know you like Halloween as well because we've talked about this before, but what do you like about it? Or what does it mean for you?
Yes, thanks, Peter. I do. I absolutely love Halloween, and I've loved it ever since I was a kid. And these past few years, I've been sort of wondering, I'm like, why do I like Halloween so much? I think I've boiled it down to three reasons why I really like Halloween. The first, and I think you already mentioned this, but you get to be anybody you want to be on Halloween. I think for myself, I'm a people pleaser, so I wear a lot of masks, and I always try to be what everybody else wants me to be for them. And I think on Halloween, I don't have to do that. I can just be Bonnie, but in a costume, and I can wear whatever costume I want to wear, and I'm just doing that because it's fun for me. So I think we get to explore a little bit of, sort of dipping our toes in different areas. Like if you want to be really spooky and you want to explore that spooky side of yourself, you can wear a costume like that. Or if you want to be glamorous or whatever it is, you really the sky is the limit with Halloween. And it really is a permission slip just to have fun and be whoever you want to be. The other reason I think I love Halloween is, for me, it allows me to explore things that frighten me, I think, or because it's almost like a safe space to do that because there's so much around. Like there's ghosts and there's skeletons and zombies and people flesh, obviously it's not real. If it was real, that would be a different story. But because there's so much of that around, it kind of softens those things a little
Mhm,
bit
mhm.
because I don't like watching scary movies. I don't like being scared. Like if somebody were to come up to me and scare me, I would scream and probably have a heart attack. So it's not that I love gore or like I like watching things on TV like surgeries or anything like that. I don't, but there's something about Halloween that stuff, I'll look at it because it's not real and it allows me to be like, like I don't know, kind of like dip my
Yeah,
toe
yeah,
in those things that scare me a little bit. So I think that's another reason. And my third would be I love people's spirit around
yeah.
Halloween. And I think it spreads so much joy, which is funny because it's this, people are trying to, scare you and we've talked about this in a previous episode, but where you live in the little town where you live, people do such a great job at
Yeah.
decorating their homes and people drive around those neighborhoods and
Mhm.
then they vote for those houses. And I think that shows so much spirit. When people do that, it's so much effort, it's expensive, but they're doing that because they love it and they're doing that to share that joy with other people. So I think it brings people together and it's just so much fun. And I really applaud the people that take the time to to give us something to enjoy about Halloween if we don't have the means to do that. And of course, the people who hand out candy, like we thank you, we love you, and it's fun. And
Yeah.
I think I always come back to this. We need to have more fun in life.
Yeah. And I wonder whether or not that's why I don't know if it's been a resurgence, but I like Halloween for very different reasons than I liked Halloween as a kid. As a kid, it was, you got to run around your neighborhood and fill up, I think for me it was empty pillowcases, filled with candy. And, if you could be quick, you could kind of expand and go, through a larger neighborhood and, you pretty much from sundown right until whatever time it was that people started closing their doors. Whereas I agree with you. I think as an adult, it really is. It's a fun time. It's a time where there's joy and it's not necessarily celebration, but it's fun. It's almost not no holes barred, but you just everything is much more acceptable on Halloween. And you mentioned the town I live in. Starting in early October, they actually do the main street of the town, everything gets decorated with Halloween, and our town council goes all out to make sure that it's a very Halloween friendly place. So yeah, it's great. I think I've mentioned on a previous podcast. I live in an old Victorian home that my house does Halloween extremely well, extremely well, and I love dressing. I love dressing it up for Halloween. So
Well, it's we decorate. I mean, nobody comes to our house because we live in the country,
yeah.
but I decorate the house. We put some stuff outside, and when people come over, they're like, "Bonnie, I didn't realize how much you liked Halloween." And I pretty much leave it up for a month. Like the beginning of
Yeah,
October, I'm
yeah.
decorating my house, and I don't know, it's fun. I can't explain it. And I think
No, I
if
agree.
you're that
I agree.
Halloween person, you know what I'm talking about. There's this
Mhm.
energy about Halloween. You can't really explain why you love it so much, but it really fills your cup.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's great. Fills your cup. What a great segue. One of the four suits. So we are today going to talk, or we're going to share. I think we have three or four decks kind of set aside each that we're going to just highlight that are, I'll say Halloween friendly. Some are Halloween themed. Some are definitely more like friendly, like set in a Halloween spirit that they would be appropriate for the time. So, did you want to go first? Do you want me to start?
I can go first if
Go
you
ahead. All
want.
right. Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, so if you've been listening to our podcast, you've probably heard me talk about this deck. It would not be a Halloween edition uh, podcast episode without me mentioning the Trick or Treat Tarot by Barbara Moore and Jonathan Hunt.
I was going to say,
And it's a Llewellyn deck. So these are the backs of the cards. They if you're listening, you might want to go and look them up, but they have some skulls on them and they have, purple and orange and the backs are really great. What I love about this deck is that every card whoever's in the card is dressed up as a Halloween character. So it's all about costumes. So it's really fun, even just to get ideas about costumes or just to see things from your childhood. You're like, oh, I remember when people used to dress up like that. And I love how the costumes really portray the messaging in tarot. So they do a really great job with these cards. So I'm just going to pull a few cards. I can't show you the whole deck. We could do an entire episode
Yeah,
on this deck,
on what
but
deck?
I'm going to pull a few of my favorites and then I'm going to pass it on to Peter. So this is the Seven of Pentacles. This Yeah, so it
Yeah.
has a guy who's dressed up like in an Elvis costume, I'm gonna say, and it looks like he's in a room that's decorated for a party. This might be one of my favorite tarot
Mhm.
cards of all time, just because I love how she portrays the messaging in this card. So this
Yeah.
guy is all dressed up. He's having a party and now he's waiting for his guests to come. It's really nothing else that he can do. He can look around and he can kind of see, oh, do I need to put out some more chips or drinks or something. So he can get a few things
Mhm.
ready, but he's done all the work and now it's just patience. It's like, okay, I'm waiting for my guests to come. And that's really the message of
Of Pentacles,
the
yeah.
Seven of Pentacles. So I love, love, love this card. I'm just going to quickly show you a few more. This is the Five of Wands, which I think I've talked about again in a previous episode. They're trying to hit a piñata, which
Yeah.
is the perfect sort of messaging for
Totally.
like healthy competition.
Yeah.
Like whoever hits the piñata, everybody wins, right? I'm like showing a lot of pentacles here. This is the Four of Pentacles, which generally I'm not drawn to this card. But again, the messaging is this guy's sitting on a stack of pumpkins, and these pumpkins are no good on October or November the 1st, right? Like if you don't sell them by October 31st, these pumpkins are no good to you. So why are you like sitting on this stack of pumpkins, right? So this idea of like trying to hold on to everything. I love the High Priestess because she's pulling tarot cards. I loved Elvira when I was a kid. I mean, I was too young to watch it, and I would probably watch little bits of it, but this Nine of Pentacles is great. And then I'll show one more, the Sun card,
Oh,
which
that's a beautiful
shows a
card.
little girl dressed as a sunflower blowing out birthday candles. And the description in this card is about like who doesn't love like birthdays, right? And when you think about the sun, you think about that energy that like blowing out birthday candles, you're usually really happy on your birthday. So
Hmm.
anyway, that was a really quick run through
Well,
of some of my favorite cards in that deck.
even the idea that, I always think from an astrological perspective that solar return, the idea of the sun coming back to this place of birth is usually something that happens on your birthday. It definitely happens within a day of your birthday. So that sun is
Mm,
also really important when it comes to celebrating birthdays, which is what's in that image. So, oh, that's
mhm.
fantastic. A deck I have as well is actually, I think, with the Elvira card. I think it's one. Is it the one that's portrayed on the box? I think, anyways. But yeah,
I have to go get my box.
it doesn't matter. That's, it is an interesting deck. So, okay, I'm debating on which one I'm going to start with. So I actually think I'm going to start with the Black Tarot. So this is
Mm,
by Victoria Iva, and it's actually put together by DeBry, and that's Brigh. That's the publisher. I don't know if I've talked about this one before. I may have. So this is the deck. It's actually the
mm.
deck itself is all black. So this is the back of the
Ooh,
deck. And
the
then
back is gorgeous.
yeah, the back is beautiful. So for those who are listening, the back of the deck is sort of just a black and gray or even shades of black patterns. It looks like almost an oil slick, but with just black. And then the cards, if I kind of, almost fan them out and just show you what they look like from that perspective, they are all done
Mm,
in blacks and in shades of gray. The ones that I kind of pulled out to show, and I'm trying to think which one of these is my favorite. Probably the Hermit. There's just something about, so the Hermit card here, and I might have actually, part of me thinks
Mm,
I've shared this before. If I haven't done it here, I've done it in one of my classes, because I love the idea of, so this is a hermit sort of at the top of what might be a pillar of ice or a pillar of stone, and the only white light is the light that the hermit takes up. So they're kind of standing in the middle of a spotlight almost. And I think it highlights two things about that I love about the hermit card. And one is the difficulty of that quest to get to where we
mm,
need to go, which is climbing to the top of that mountain. And this isn't a mountain. This is literally a spire that, would be exceptionally difficult to get on top of. And then there's the success of getting there, which is shown by the light. But then there's also the fact that this hermit is also a source of light, that, there's light kind of coming from their extended hand. And I think what a great card to show, like it shows light despite the fact that it is done in blacks and kind of shades of gray. So that's probably my favorite card in the deck. But then there are others like the Justice card, which is beautiful. It does a really nice job of showing the balance between dark and light in balance. And I love the tear that's dropping from the eye, because to me it signals the fact that we might not like what justice has for us, but that justice determines that it's fair. So, we might be
mm,
shedding a tear because it's, justice, the lesson that justice was giving us isn't necessarily what we wanted, and might even, cause us sadness or grief, but it is what the universe deemed fair, and therefore it's kind of justice. So I love that card. Another one I loved was the Eight of Cups. So what I really like about this card is, and you
mm,
might not be able to notice it for those of you who can see, but along the very bottom of the card are the eight cups that the figure is leaving behind. And they're shown almost in ascending size from small to large, and the person is leaving them behind. And then the character is, they're humanoid, but they have a very fluid nature to them as well. I'll hold it up again for those of you that are able to see. Those of you who can't, it's a humanoid figure that's sort of racing away from the eight cups that they're leaving behind, which again I think does such a nice job of highlighting the idea behind the Eight of Cups. And then the last two, which I'll just show briefly, one's the Nine of Swords, which is an odd card to have as a favorite because it's not my favorite in any deck. But this is a really interesting one that shows the idea of the fear that's surrounded, by that around that Nine of Swords card, and the face that really isn't a face at all. It's just sort of a swirl,
mm,
with two hands held over ears, and what looks like a stylized swirl that gives you the idea that somebody is screaming without there actually being a character that's screaming. And then the last one that I wanted to share is the Strength card, because it does
mm,
both. It does a good job of showing both, I think, the softness of the Strength card along with the fire and might, that kind of comes with the Strength card as well. That Leo, that line, that leonine energy that comes with strength. So I don't know. Part of the reason I think it's Halloween friendly is it really is a card that centers around that shadow side. It's all shadow. It's all black and grays and shades of black. I didn't realize blacks, could have a shade until you start, looking at things like midnight black and, jet black and night black and all of these kinds of things. But I really do like the deck around this time of year, and that's the reason I like it. And those are some of my favorite cards. So again, it was the Black Tarot. The creator is Victoria Iva, IVA, and the publisher is Dabri. So DA and then BRIGH. All things that we'll include in the show notes if people are interested in some of those decks. So that's deck one for me, anyways.
That deck is gorgeous,
That's a
Peter.
beautiful deck.
The imaging on that, although like sometimes cards are really busy and they offer a lot
Yeah,
of symbolism and pictures in the cards. But sometimes when it's very minimal, you can get so much out
yeah,
of that because you're not seeing all these things um coming at you quite
right.
so like I'm sure you can go really deep with that deck and it can really evoke a lot of stuff for you even though it is quite minimal, but it's absolutely
Yeah,
beautiful. I
yeah.
might I might have to buy that one, Peter.
Well, just
This is
wait. I'm
dangerous,
saving. I'm
people.
saving the best for last because the last deck I'm going to share is one that I basically bought, 2 days before we record this episode, and it has very, very quickly become my favorite deck for around this time of year. But I'm going to save that though.
I think I know what that one
I know
is.
you know which one it is. So
Okay, so on to my next pick. I am going the Halloween route with a
yeah.
couple of these decks. So my next pick is the Halloween Tarot. These are the backs of them. They're really sweet. And the Halloween Tarot is by Karen Lee, and the artwork is by Kipling West. That's what the book looks like.
Mm.
This is a really sweet deck. It's a very right
Rider Waite Smith.
Rider
Yeah.
Waite Smith based, but with a Halloween twist. So if you love RWS decks, you're going to love this because it's very Halloween inspired. I'm going to show you a few of my favorite cards here without going into too much detail. But our first one here is the Empress. So is that like the
Wow.
Bride of
Yeah,
Frankenstein?
yeah.
I love the way that, I mean, I love the Empress anyways, but just the depiction of her, the Bride of Frankenstein, I think that's so smart. And then, so the Bride of Frankenstein is the Empress. And then for the Emperor, we have Frankenstein. So I think that's really smart and super cute. Okay, what else do we have here? Like it's just it's so charming. So the magician, we actually have a magician who's pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Like you can read this so easily. The Eight of Pumpkins, I love, or sorry, they also named the suits a little bit different. So the pumpkin suit is the suit of Pentacles. So it has somebody carving pumpkins, work that we absolutely
Yeah.
love to do. This chariot is hilarious. It's a hearse. And there's a pumpkin, and I think there's a black cat in every single card. So if you love black cats, you're going to love this deck. The Tower, genius. It's a haunted house.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and then the Strength card, it's a lion tamer. Like it's just so sweet. So definitely Halloween inspired. So that's pick number 2 for me.
Okay. Wow, I love that. That's great. And me, right? That might be something that I'm just reaching over to get my next deck, but that might be, especially if it's RWS focused.
Oh,
That could,
100%.
yeah.
And they have the little tin version, which I don't have. And I want it, but I have to calm myself down with all the decks. But I love decks and tins, and I really, really want the tin version of that deck. So
Okay. Oh, that's great. Awesome.
Mhm.
I did no Halloween themed decks as we had talked about this before. So, and mine are like I have the Trick or Treat deck, but it's a relatively recent purchase. So,
Which Peter very
yeah.
nicely let me talk about.
Yes. Well, it's not that you're probably much more adept at talking about it than I am. And like I said, I say not that I'm not a big fan of theme decks because my last one is a theme deck, but the vast majority of my decks wouldn't be there in the themed area. The next deck I'm going to share is one that I'd already talked about, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. It's the Nightfall Tarot by Amori Abbott, and I've actually used it in the last couple of card draws. But I will highlight some of the cards that are some of my favorites. So funny you mentioned the Empress, because I think in the next 2 decks that I'm going to highlight, I've actually pulled the Empress card out to share. And now the thing about the Nightfall Tarot, it's also very much a Rider-Waite Smith focused deck, as you can see by the Empress card, but again is also done in blacks and shades of gray. So it is a black and white deck. So the Empress here, a little bit different, but still kind of laid out on a, I guess on a sofa with that abundance behind her, the waterfall. Again, done a little bit differently. The style is different, but the content is very much the same. I also love the idea of the cup overfloweth with the Ace of Cups in this particular deck. What I also like too is I like that they've moved away from the Christian imagery, which I find, for me anyways, is a little bit more appealing in that Ace of Cups. And again, though, it still gives that idea of the offering of the cup overflowing that you see in the Rider Waite. And then the last one that I'm going to share here is the idea of the Three of Cups
Mm.
and how, again, Amori Abbott has done such a good job of modernizing, through dress and through really through diversity of participants, really done a good job of showing, what the Three of Cups might look like, in 2024, as opposed to what it looked like in 1909. But they're also dancing through what looks like, I think it might be a melon patch as well, which is awesome. Like they're just, they're there's a huge celebration about what they're doing. So anyway, so I love that deck again. It's the Nightfall Tarot by Amori Abbott. And this is the back of it, is
Ooh.
just again beautiful. It looks like it might be wands, or maybe
It's
it's
like the Nine of
vines.
Wands.
Yeah, it kind of does. But I think they might be vines as well.
Mm.
That are stylized and kind of crossing three and three and three intertwined. I love decks too where you can't tell. I don't use reversals much, but you kind of can't tell from the back whether or not the card is upside down or right side up. So, anyways, that's a Nightfall Tarot by Amori Abbott. That's my next kind of favorite one.
Peter, you're showing me these decks.
I know you've seen
I,
that one.
I,
You've seen that.
yeah, but I have a soft spot for black and white deck. I love black and white, which you could probably even
Yeah.
sort of tell based on my
Yes.
costume here.
Yes. Oh, for
Black and white.
those who are listening, we are dressed in costume, by the way. So I'm dressed as the kind of a modified version of the Mad Hatter from the Alice in Wonderland books. So, Bonnie, do you want to tell people what you're wearing? Because you said black and white, sorry.
Yeah, I'm like a 1920s flapper girl.
There you go.
So I'm
So,
harnessing my glam side, and I'm and I have black hair today.
yes, and
I'm
white
wearing a
pearls and a
black
black
wig,
dress,
so
and yeah. Totally.
I get to pretend I'm somebody else.
Sorry, you were saying though that you liked black and white, then you were talking about your costumes.
I love black and white decks, and
Yeah,
those are so perfect for this time of year
they
as
are.
well. So
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I shared the first two. I thought nice theme, because that theme of shadow and shadow work, and the things that we fear is a really is appropriate, is an appropriate theme for this time of year. So, and I think those decks do a really good job of highlighting that. So,
great.
all right.
Okay, so my next pick. So these are not Halloween themed decks, but they definitely go with the season. And if you've been listening, you probably know a little bit about my history with tarot. I was terrified of the tarot. I didn't want to see any scary images. I didn't want to see gory things. But in my evolution of tarot, I've sort of reached the tarot has really helped me face a lot of my fears, which is quite funny that I wasn't drawn to it because I was afraid of it. And now that I'm working with the tarot, it's really helping me to explore certain parts of myself that I never really wanted to see, or I was too afraid to look at. So then I started diving into some of the not darker decks, but maybe decks that help you explore those fears a little bit more. And these decks definitely have some images in them that are not, cute and sweet.
Right.
So the first deck that I purchased that is more of a shadow deck is the Darkwood Tarot, and that's the back by Sasha Graham, and it is a Llewellyn deck. This deck, I love this deck. I've had the pleasure of meeting Sasha in person. She is the most incredible human being, so inspiring, and her work. I love her work because she does it's almost like we can't see the light without looking at the dark,
Yeah.
and she makes doing this work more approachable and sort of helps you do that in a way that feels good for you. So this was my first deck that I bought that was kind of like, oh, but I love it. So I'm going to just show you a few images. We have the Fool here, which is this beautiful woman walking. Again, it's very Rider-Waite Smith inspired. A lot of these images are going to be very familiar to you, but the artwork is absolutely beautiful. And I should really, I'm going to look at who the artist was for this deck. We have the Sun card. I love this because it's I mean, if you're watching, there's nothing explicit on the card. If you're listening, it'll sound explicit, but there's a woman riding a horse and she doesn't have any clothes on. You can't see anything, but it just shows vulnerability, but
Mhm.
also being like shining in the sun, like coming out exactly as you are. So I really love that image. Temperance. I love the temperance card anyways. And the temperance card in this deck is
Beautiful.
gorgeous. It's this angel, again, very Rider-Waite-Smith inspired. She's pouring a liquid from one cup to another. And we see that tower in the background. I love that because it's kind of foreshadowing what's coming. So when deck creators do that, she really tells a story
Hmm.
in the majors as you know it goes through, and I just love that.
Now, Bonnie, can
I'll
I
show.
ask, is Temperance
Yes,
horned in that?
yes.
So because I think,
Let me grab it. I can't
yeah,
grab it very well with these gloves.
with the gloves. Yeah, I thought I couldn't. I thought I saw horns, but so I think what a great segue from 14 to the Devil in 15 to the Tower in 16. So you talk about a story, and then the balance with the angel wings, and then almost alluding to the devil as well. So you almost have that balance of light and dark there too. What a beautiful card! I can see why you
It
like it.
is. It's gorgeous. And she's wearing green, like this really dark green. And when I
Yeah.
see green, I think about the heart, and the heart chakra. So, like I just pulled this card for myself this week. I did 3 cards, and the 3 cards, and Temperance was one of them. And then they just all told the most incredible story, and they were all majors, and it was the most amazing spread. So, I could go on and on. I'll show you one more. This is the strength card.
Oh
And
wow.
in the strength card, it has a snake, like a woman, and then there's a snake in front of her, like a cobra. So another interesting take on strength and
Hmm.
I mean, snakes freak people out. And this woman is calm, and it's almost like, she's mesmerizing the snake. So again, there's no force in this card. It's all, compassion and really being in your power. So another really great deck to explore. Okay, I'll show you one more. The High Priestess. It's gorgeous. I
Okay.
can't. Okay.
No, but there's a softness to that one as well. So while you had asked about the illustrator, it's Abigail Larson, only because I have
Thank
the
you.
deck kind of ready here as well, kind of a seasonal deck, one that I also want to explore because any of the cursory look I've done at it it's beautiful. There's a real softness to that High Priestess as well, which kind of lends itself well to its link to the moon and um, yeah, that's wow, what a
Yeah,
beautiful.
and even the messaging in like the book is wonderful. It's a beautiful illustrated book. Uh some of the takes on the interpretations of the cards really help you to see it from almost like a shadow perspective.
Yeah.
So it's really good for introspection.
Yeah.
So
And
she did a really great job.
I would imagine that's Sasha's work as well. Cause I mean, even just listening to any of her posts, stuff that she does online, she does such a good job of making that shadow side approachable to, to people who want to do work. But like you said, sometimes there's some real fear around going into ourselves, going into our shadow selves through a tool like the tarot. And she really makes that approachable. And one of the things that book does so well does exactly that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, her work with shadow work is
it's
phenomenal. So
fantastic. Fantastic.
definitely an inspiration.
Okay. The next deck I have, same thing. It would be a phenomenal, maybe a less well-known deck that would also be a fantastic deck to bring out to do some shadow work. And that's because the cards themselves really do express just by their image that shadow side. And it is the Night Sun Tarot by Fabio Listrani. So this is the back. Now it's one of those ones that you can tell whether it's reversed or not. But again, it doesn't matter. So it's kind of a stylized back again, done in blacks and golds. Beautiful deck. But and we talked about the idea of shadow work and Halloween. I always think the other thing I love about Halloween is the fact that I mean I have just a whack of Scorpio in my chart, so that makes Halloween a very interesting time and one I connect with. The card in this deck that I'm going to share, and I'll share a couple more, but is the Death card. And I know it's
Oh,
an odd card to share as sort of a favorite, but so for those who can't see it, this is a Grim Reaper like character who is both naked and pregnant, who is holding a scythe. To me, I think it does such a wonderful job of highlighting the idea of both endings and the
Mhm.
possibility of the rebirth that comes with the death card. And this
That's
is
a
what I
genius.
it's
Like I'm
right.
just gonna interrupt you for 1 second.
No,
That
no.
is genius.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Mhm.
I mean, the other thing I like about it as well is it does give the astrological significance right on the card. So the glyph for Scorpio is right there, along with the Hebrew letter that's associated to the card as well. And not all cards have that darkness to them. One of the other cards that are beautiful here that I'm going to share is the Two of Cups. Um, the Two of Cups shows two
Mm.
people at in either corner of the card with their cups. So if you kind of reverse the card, you know, almost have a mirror image, and what appears to be floating is a heart, you know, in between the two. So it's that idea of, you know, I, with the Two of Cups, I give my heart to you. This one is literally giving their heart to each other. The heart is kind of sitting in between. But I love the blues that the water is really pronounced. Without there being water, you really get that sense of water in all the cups cards. And then the last one I'm going to share here is the Ten of Swords. You know, and
You're
right,
going for it
I'm
today with
going
these
for it
cards,
today. But
Peter.
look, right, the Ten of Swords, a card where you've got kind of 10 swords stabbed into someone's back. Here you have 10 swords again that are, you know, sort of pinning the person down, but they're all over the body. You know, they're coming in at all angles. In some ways, you know, the fears, the thoughts that are often associated with the 10 of swords aren't just coming from behind, they're coming from all over. They're coming from the front, the side, they're coming from the shoulders, which again, I think is a really interesting message with you know, that kind of highlights that Ten of Wands. And then, you know, all the other images are like that too. So that's the Fool sort of all the way through. You can see that any card that represents fire, so the reds there, that's all the Suit of Wands.
Mm.
You can kind of see the greens that are in the Pentacles, that soft aqua blue that's in the cups, and then that yellow that's in the swords. The backgrounds really do a great job of representing the elements. So that's the Night Sun Tarot. That I think
Another
is
gorgeous
yeah, it's
deck,
a beautiful
Peter.
deck.
You're killing me.
It's a beautiful deck. I believe if I go and check, I think it's a one that follows the Thoth system.
Oh, okay.
It is. So it's yeah, Justice in 8, Strength in 11, and then the colors and cards um, really do link to the Crowley Harris Book of Thoth, but nonetheless, it is a beautiful deck for that kind of shallow shadow work. So yeah, sorry that I'm killing you if I'm giving you a list of stuff. Wait until the last one I share, though, really. But
Oh no,
um,
I
so
can't
that
take any more. I can't.
I know that. So that's
My
the night
Peter.
sometime.
My husband is going to ban me from this podcast, Peter. He's going to be like, you have to stop
I
doing
know.
this because more decks are going to show
I
up at
know.
my
Well,
house.
look, and I already mentioned the deck that I'm sharing last is one I literally bought 2 days ago.
Oh yes, okay.
I need another deck. But it didn't matter when I saw this one. I was like, no, 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 no. This one is coming home with me, but I'm going to save that. I'm
You're
going to
gonna
save
save
that.
that. Okay. So I'm gonna give you my last pick of my there are more decks. Like I it
Yep.
was hard for me to um anyway, I'm going to share this deck. So this was another deck that I was sort of afraid of and then got over my fear and bought the deck and it's wonderful. So another Sasha Graham deck. So this one was with Lo Scarabeo and the artist is Mirko Pierre Federici. I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. This is the box. So this is Tarot of Haunted House. So again, some images in here that I was like, but I really love working with it. It again, it's genius. It's about a haunted house. It's about a woman named Raven who is the fool, which I'll show you. These gloves are just don't ever do a tarot event wearing gloves
Wearing
because
gloves.
it's not going to work. So this is the Fool, and I love that. So it's Raven, and she's running away from the haunted house, I believe. Like the haunted house is up on the hill, and she's leaving. So she's setting out on
Yep.
this journey. And then it shows her journey through the majors um, in different rooms that she comes to in the haunted house. This is the High Priestess. How gorgeous is
Wow.
this card?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. The imagery in here is fantastic. Oh, I love this. So this is the Two of Pentacles. What
Ah,
does that remind you of?
yep. I know exactly what movie that's from.
Yeah,
As a
so
Stephen
a
King
very
fan.
famous movie with two girls in a hallway.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of that. So there's some reference to certain um pop culture again
Mhm.
movies. I love this chariot.
Oh,
This is
wow.
probably one of my favorite cards
Yeah.
in this deck. It has this, I guess, driver who's opening the door. He's a chauffeur, I guess, opening the door to this I guess gothic limousine,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that would be. So yeah, it's just amazing. I love this Four of Cups. So she's not even
Mm.
looking at the three cups, and then there's another cup that's being handed to her. So again, very Rider-Waite Smith inspired,
Yeah.
really easy to read, but some of the interpretations of the card. Okay, I have to show you this because this is the strength card. It shows her looking in the mirror. Hello.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
How hard is it to look in the mirror and see
Yeah.
the reflection that
Yeah.
comes back to you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I
And the
love
strength
that.
it requires to do that too.
Yes,
Mhm.
the compassion.
Mhm.
Yeah, the strength, like
Mhm.
all of that. I thought that was genius.
Yeah.
Uh,
Brilliant.
so I love Sasha Graham. I will fangirl over her all day. Oh, and then okay, one last card. So this is the world, and now she has the key to the haunted house. So she's right, kind of gone full
Full
circle, running
circle.
away,
Yeah.
and now she owns it. So just a fantastic deck.
Okay. Oh well. Now that you've done the same thing to me, is I am now going to have to start buying some of these decks. So thank you. Thank you. But I'm with you. I love Sasha Graham's work. Her writing in particular. I've got a couple of her books, so I can, and only one of her decks, but I find her books to be absolutely inspiring. So I'm not surprised that her decks are also inspiring as well. So, I will also fangirl Sasha Graham. All right. My last deck is one I, up until 2 days ago, had never heard of. And I
Oh,
have quickly changed that. So this is the Horror Tarot by Todd Alcott.
and
And
let's just make it
yeah,
there are two horror tarots
yes,
out there because I own a different horror tarot. So there's two of them. So don't be confused
don't be
with what
confused.
Peter's talking
Yeah,
about.
Todd Alcott is the creator of this one. This is the back of it. So there's no, kind
Oh,
of, it's pretty simple. I will say and I'll start actually with a criticism of the deck. My only criticism of the deck is its construction. It is a little on the
mm.
flimsy side. My worry is that as I use this deck continuously, which is going to happen over the course of October, then I'll probably tuck it away, but maybe I won't. It
You just
will
have to
get
get another one.
I know it will get used and used well. The premise of the deck is the suits and the majors highlight horror pulp fiction. So they
Mm.
highlight it in movie format, comic, book, art, and I think television and popular culture. So all of the major arcana. So I wanted to share, the Fool card with you. All the major arcana is set up like movie posters for fictional movies.
That is
And
so
and the
cool.
book actually describes this fake, I think it's actually called the horror movie or horror something. It describes this fake film company that creates these movies. So it gives them a year, a director, all fictional. Um, and you can see here the movie of the Fool, and it's called, the subtitle of the movie is called Take the Step. And then the image is a woman taking the first step off a cliff with a dog behind her. And then the text at the bottom, which again, you can't see, but it's very much in a movie style, is actually, and I'm going to read it. It says, Horror Tarot presents Major Arcana card 00, the Fool. A symbol of enthusiastic innocence, you are beginning a vast journey in life, but you are not afraid of the challenges before you because you live in the moment. That's the text on the poster, which is could be the interpretive text of the card itself. And almost all the cards in the major arcana are like that. Some of the cards in the minor arcana are like that as well. So I'm just going to share a couple. Um,
That would be a great beginner's deck, I'm
it
thinking.
it would be, except the images, although
Oh,
some link to traditional decks, the interpretation would be harder, I think, with the images, and because some don't have any interpretive text at all. So I
okay.
think it would be beginner friendly for sure. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to turn
Okay.
anybody off it because I love this deck. The challenge is if people start buying this deck, then me going to get my second deck is going to be that much harder. But
Right.
here was another one. So the pentacles are actually all set up like comic books. So all the pentacles are like the cover of a comic book with even the little 15 cents on there. And the series is called the Suit of Pentacles. And then this one is the Seven of Pentacles. Look upon my works, which is the kind of the quotation that's in there. And
My
then
husband would love that. He,
right.
like, as a kid, collected comic books, and he's been looking at my decks recently. And I
I
think that would be a fun one for him to look
Well,
at.
and I'm a huge horror genre fan. You had talked about, the two people that were standing up in the two, was it the Two of Pentacles that had the two? Yeah.
Yes, the
So
two
I mean,
the
I
twins.
the twins from The Shining, Stephen King. I'm
Yep.
a massive Stephen King fan. I've read everything he's ever published, including his nonfiction stuff. And I've seen probably most movies as well that are adaptations of his book. So I am a horror genre fan.
Mm.
And this actually reminds me of a book that Stephen King wrote called Danse Macabre, which is sort of a look at horror as a genre. So again,
Mm.
right, you've got the Suit of Pentacles, and here we have the Knight of Pentacles, you know,
Oh.
which is a comic book style image of someone who's a skeleton, holding and dancing with a partner, and the subtitle for the Knight of Pentacles is "Slow and Steady Wins the Race." Right? Like it's
That's
absolutely
genius.
absolutely brilliant. The last one I'm going to share is because I could share a ton. Um, sorry, I'm going to share two more. So what I meant to say in some of them where there is no text whatsoever, the cups give homage to pulp paperback fiction. So here you've got the
Mm.
cover of a book called Horror Tarot, The Eight of Cups, and
Mm.
with a skull on the top, but with somebody who is clearly walking away from something, that's leaving something behind, walking towards moonlight, reflected in the eye of one of the skulls. There's no interpretive text here. So this is what I mean that, and I don't think any of the cups have interpretive text, although again, I've only had the deck for a couple of days. The last one I wanted to share because I love the image. It's so like 1950s pulp culture is the Hierophant,
Oh,
right?
that's so
So
cool.
you've got the Hierophant, and then of course the text is the Horror Tarot presents card number 5 in the Major Arcana. That's across the top, the Hierophant. And then it says, he sees through this material world and into your very soul. And then of course there's this person with, very 50s style hypnotic, eyes looking through something. And then of course there's more subtext at the bottom of the movie posters is the Hierophant, a symbol of tradition, conformity, power structures, religion, and formal doctrines, also known as the teacher or the Pope. And then it has the Horror Tarot movie studio stamp. So, like,
I
hats
love
off to
that.
Todd Alcott. What a brilliant concept. As a matter of fact, it's going to be the deck that I'm going to use for my card draw today. I've been drawn
Mm.
to it so much, but it is a deck that, like I said, we were walking around. It was a weekend where my wife and I take our adult children away for a weekend so we can kind of hang out with the kids and their partners. And we were walking around, I'll say a town or a city near us called Cambridge. We went into this bookstore, and it was like the only thing I was drawn to. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck is this deck? And looked at it, I'm like, okay, I'm walking out with this thing. And yeah, I've been sort of, playing with it ever since. So, anyways,
And
that's
you don't have to just use it around Halloween. Like, that would be a
no,
fun deck to use
totally. It
anytime.
absolutely would be. It absolutely would be. I would use it for personal work. It could be, look, I would use it if a client was, saying, hey, I saw this deck that you had and can you use it? I would absolutely use it, but it wouldn't be one I would pull out, other than around October, to use with a client. But I absolutely, like I said, hats off to Todd Alcott. Wonderful job with the design of this deck. I absolutely love it. So
Yeah, I've never heard, well, I may have heard of it, but I hadn't seen any images from
no,
that deck because every time I think of horror tarot, there's another horror tarot. Um, but that's fascinating.
oh, it's
Like
fascinating.
it's so smart.
Yeah, brilliant concept. So all right.
Okay, so do we want to draw a card?
Yes. What deck are you going to use? Because I've already outed, which deck I'm going to use.
I think I'm going to use Tarot of Haunted House. So I'm going to
Okay.
push
There
myself
you
a
go.
little.
All right. Well, this is, like I said, this is me pushing myself because other than, the work I was kind of doing, doing cursory explorations of the deck, I haven't used this one at all for a reading.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I am
Go ahead.
shuffling with gloves on,
Okay.
and shuffling on a good day is hard
Okay.
for me.
Well,
So let's see what
do you want to keep
happens.
shuffling and then because I can draw a card first and you can keep shuffling if
Sure.
you want with your gloves. All right. See. Okay. Well, I pulled a card we've seen already.
Okay.
So I pulled the Fool, which
Oh,
is interesting. Couple of, so I've read the text. So as you know, for those of you who can see, movie poster of a movie called The Fool with the subtitle of, um, take the step, and then it kind of gives that text. Horror Tarot is the name of the studio that created it. I actually think, from an interpretive perspective, this is interesting because, as we've talked about before, we're sort of taking that first step in a rebranding of our podcast with the Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. This is the first of two episodes where we're taking a step towards Halloween friendly decks. In our next episode, the one that follows this one, we're going to look at the kind of work that you might be able to do in and around Halloween as well. So I think the Fool is an appropriate card to pull from those perspectives. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it because we know the Fool card. And, again, I already talked about the card in this deck. So I don't know. Anything that you would add to that particular
no,
short?
I love that. And I love how and actually that card matches my
Oh
headpiece
my goodness,
very
yeah. Yeah, it really
nicely.
does actually. The
There's
reds and blacks.
red
Yeah.
and there's black.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, yeah, it's very coordinating with what I'm wearing. Uh, I love how you brought that into what we're doing. So,
Mhm.
this is kind of taking a risk. Like, we're
Totally.
dressing up for Halloween on
Right.
our podcast.
Yeah.
Halloween isn't for everybody, but we're kind of taking that risk,
Mhm.
and we're being adventurous and spontaneous. And I love that about the Fool. It's like, if there's something that you want to do, you're supported, and go for it, because you don't know what the outcome is going to
Right.
be if you never try. So, and that card is like an invitation. Like, if there's something you want to do, just do
Do
it,
it.
have fun, and see where that takes you. So I think that was a perfect card to pull.
Yeah, that's a great thank you. It's because it's a great reminder that, that first step is important, and whether or not the first step is basically a plummet to your death, or the first step in in a much longer journey, then you take it anyways. And to apply it to what we're doing, it might be, what, we might do a Halloween themed episode or two and they fall flat on their face. We're doing it anyways. Or it might be the start of a tradition that we do when October of 2025 rolls around and we're well into season 2 of our podcast, that we bring out different costumes and do this all over again with the next iteration of our favorite work and our favorite deck. So yeah,
Yeah, and then maybe by then we'll have like people that will do our makeup, and we'll actually have like these
right.
phenomenal
Listen, if we're gonna
costumes.
dream, we might as well
Gonna
dream
dream big,
big.
Peter.
Yeah, in our studio with our makeup people. You got it.
Yes, see?
All right.
Okay, so
Your turn.
I use Tarot of Haunted House, and the card that I pulled is the Two of Swords.
Oh, wow.
This is almost a replica of the Two of Swords from the Rider-Waite-Smith, so a very familiar image for sure. So if you are familiar with tarot and you're familiar with that deck, this card would be super easy to read. So again, the Two of Swords, about making a decision, right? And a difficult decision. And when I see the Two of Swords, I think about, like, you either have to take the blindfold off to sort of see clearly so you can make a decision, or if there's too much going on, you need to put a blindfold on so that you can go within. And this is really about also like using the mind to make a decision. So really weighing out those pros and cons, and Yeah, I like the Two of Swords. I have a hard time making decisions, so when I see this, I'm like, okay, I need some clarity. So there's definitely clarity that will come from this when you take the time to really to figure out which decision is best for you. What would you say? What would you add to that,
Yeah,
Peter?
the only thing I would add would be based on the image that's there, and I always love it when because there's water in the
Oh,
background of the Two of Swords in the Rider-Waite Smith, and there
yes, and
also
this water is very
yeah, you
treacherous.
can kind of see that as well. So I always think um, it really is that reminder that sometimes even that decision needs to be made in a space where the water itself is treacherous, where we're feeling some kind of emotional bubbling of that water, despite the fact that this is kind of that this is the Two of Swords. I always think the water in that card does remind us that decisions aren't always made solely from a logical perspective. It's not always made from the mind, that sometimes it's made from the heart, and that sometimes the results of that decision can leave us or somebody else in emotional turmoil. That it doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be done. And I think sometimes the water in that card is a good reminder of that. I was also checking because I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a moon connection to that card somewhere. So I'm like, I'm just going to go and check in my database, and sure enough, from a an esoteric perspective, the ruler of that card from an astrological perspective is the moon, actually. So the
Mm.
moon is the ruler of this particular card. So this card is about, I think it's the moon in Gemini. I think it's the moon in Gemini. Yeah, if I'm wrong, I'll put it in the notes, but I'm almost positive that the Two of Swords
Or
is,
is it the moon in Libra?
well, it's the moon in Libra. It's the moon in Libra. You're absolutely right. Moon
Because
in
this
Libra.
is one of my cards.
Yeah, you're right. Moon and Libra. So moon ruler, um, Libra. Because as I was talking, I'm doing the mental calculations in my head, and I'm
I'm
going,
like, I
okay,
don't know how you
right?
do that, Peter.
Cardinal card. Well, I'm working my way through around the astrological wheel, but obviously too slow. So thank you for helping me with that. So I love the prominence of the moon in there as well, because the moon as the ruler of that card really does come to play. And I always think that's another reason why that card has that watery emotional
Mm,
element to it, that it can be it can create some emotional dissonance when we have to make a difficult decision. It doesn't mean we don't have to make it anyways, but it
mm,
does kind of lend itself to it plays in the background, right? So it's in the background of the card, the emotions in the background, and well, she really done a wonderful job of highlighting that aspect in that card too. So that's it. I wouldn't add anything to
Well,
create.
you added a lot, Peter.
No,
Thank
I
you
went
for
into
bringing in
different.
the astrological
Well,
correspondence to that. And the only reason I knew that is because as I dip my toes in astrology, I know that the two, the three, and the four of swords
yep.
are part of my makeup for my astrological sign. So
Well, and it would make sense, right? Because it's a cardinal sign, which I didn't know off the top of my head. I should probably think about that. Two, three, four
should have
cardinal.
a
Which
chart
what's the
somewhere.
cardinal air? I do have a. I do. But I also have a wife who's
I'm
an
teasing
astrologer,
you.
so sometimes I get lazy because I can just go and ask.
Yes, you can ask her.
No. All right. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, the one thing I wanted to mention though, we've highlighted 8 decks, which you think is a lot, but my guess is there are probably dozens and dozens of Halloween friendly and Halloween themed decks. So if you have some that are your favorite, I would love to hear about them in the comments below. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode or any one of our episodes, we would love for you to share the link to our podcast, like, subscribe, comment, engage. We would love to hear from you, and we
Mhm.
certainly would love for you to share this out. Having said all that, Bonnie, where can people find you if they're looking for you specifically?
They can find me at my website, which is breathewithbonnie.com. I'm also on Instagram at Breathe with Bonnie. So if you want to see the services that I offer, I do tarot consultations, guided meditations. You can see everything that I'm doing on my website. I also have events. I've been doing some reading events at local fairs and markets. So if you're in the area and you want to come and say hi, make sure you follow me on Instagram or sign up for my newsletter, and then you'll get information about where I'll be popping up. I'm taking Breathe with Bonnie on the road.
Nice. Good. As you should.
Yes. How about you, Peter? Where can people find you?
Best place is always Peter White Tarot. So whether that's Peter White Tarot on Instagram, Facebook, or peterwhitetarot.com on my website. As we air this, I'll be taking a bit of a hiatus. But so I won't be doing readings over the Halloween of 2024 if this is where you're reading it because I am traveling. However, I'm also in the process of developing a preparing for 2025 through the tarot workshop. So if that's of interest to you, I'd ask you to do two things. One is sign up for my newsletter because that's always the best place to get that kind of information, or follow me on my socials because that will be coming out starting sometime in mid-November. And more details will be coming out near the end of October, beginning of November around how to sign up for that. So that's what I've got going on.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us for our Halloween edition of our favorite decks. Make sure you tune in next week for part two of this little mini series that we're doing about Halloween, where we talk about some Halloween practices that you can do around this time with the tarot. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.